This video will help transition users upgrading from an earlier version of Laserstyle or Gravostyle to Gravostyle 9. So what we're faced with in this illustration is the Laserstyle user interface, the graphical interface. Also, now we are looking at the rotary engraving Gravostyle graphical interface. So we're going to focus on Laserstyle for the purposes of this session. So one thing I do want to point out is along the top, all of your toolbars are present. They are no longer down the left side. So if we look at a comparison to Laserstyle 5, we can see in this illustration on the screen that we had user panels on the left side. Sometimes we had user panels that were out on our workspace. We also had user panels for some functionalities that were at the bottom of the software. So this has been reorganized in Laserstyle 9 for all of the interaction to occur primarily at the top of the user interface. Just makes for a faster, cleaner interaction. So in looking at our toolbars that are available now, as we hover over, we'll see a description of what that tool is. So the self-help components in this version of software have been greatly increased. So if you click on a toolbar like our shapes drawing tools, and then you hover over an icon, a little pop-up window is going to give you a choice for the stars that we can watch a video, or we can go directly to the instruction manual and look at how to use this tool. So let's click on the video. It will take a couple of seconds for the video to open. It will take you through the basic functionality of that tool and how you would use it. And then in many cases, it will also show you a second series holding the F2 key. If you were to click on the same icon, it would give you this precision interface that allows you to put in exactly the size, shape, and rotation and number of points that you want your star to have. So from an engineering standpoint, there are precision drawing tools available throughout the software by holding F2 when you click on a drawing tool, for instance, like the box or the circle drawing tool. As soon as you move the mouse, that interface will go away. So now let's look at the instruction manual for the star drawing tool. By clicking on the blue icon, it takes us in the instruction manual directly to the portion of the instructions that address working with shapes such as stars. Okay? And it gives you basic instructions. In many cases, you will see that there is green text. If you click on the green text, it will take you to further explanation on these tools, as well as additional tools that are available based on the level of your software. Okay. So a nice interactive instruction manual or help manual is now available within the software. This manual can also be accessed directly by going to the upper right corner and pressing the question mark or help icon, and it will take you into the instruction manual. This is an interactive instruction manual, so we can look at the contents and then start to explore through the software using the contents. We also could do searches. So if I wanted to search for maybe guided tour, then it gives me 2 guided tours within the software. So if I select the second one, then it takes me to the interface window and allows me to start exploring by group. So if I click on the user toolbars, then it's going to take me down and give me additional explanation on what each of those tools, what job it performs. So again, anywhere that I see green text, that's a hyperlink to take me to additional explanation on that subject. So I can simply click back and back up to the beginning. Okay. So this proves to be a very helpful tool in helping you to understand different icons. So if there's an icon that you have available in your software and you're not sure how to use that icon, then when you have a few spare minutes, I would suggest hovering over that icon and going directly into the instruction manual and learning how to use that new tool that you haven't explored before. Okay, coming back to the user interface, there are basically 3 different components that I want to point out. Of course, we've looked at the interactive icons now. So if you hover over or click, it gives you additional functions from that icon. We also have a selection tool and text tool. So this was present in previous versions as well. It will toggle you between working with your basic text tools. Again, if you click over here on the T for text tools, it will show you additional tools that may be available to you, like text on a curve, text on an arc, text in a box, okay? Free floating text, so if you point and shoot to an area, it's going to give you a text baseline in that area. So when we're in the text mode, if you want additional controls over the text, other than these basic functions like text centering, justification to the left or right, baseline length, text height, font selection. If you want additional choices beyond these, then come over and click on the Rapido. The Rapido will open additional, more precision tools that are available to work with your text. So here we can define how far below the baseline an underline would be. We can do extended or exponent text. We can do subscript text. We can also view the character list for the selected font. So if there is a character that we need from a font set that doesn't appear on the keyboard, then we can go and select those additional characters and apply them directly in. So if you click insert, it will place that character where your cursor is positioned. This also allows you to see your full range of font styles. So if I wanted to access something like webdings or wingdings, then I can come in and access those here and basically point and shoot those into my job. Okay. So some good additional tools available under that Rapido wheel. And then to go back to basic text mode, I click back here and it takes me back to just the basic functionality. And this is where 90% of your work is going to be performed. Okay. In the selection mode, I have, of course, our drawing tools, our special effects tools. We have our alignment tools, transition tools, duplication tools, all up here. Our symbols library is over here in this icon. The symbols library has been greatly expanded to give you additional graphics, logos, and just tools that you can use for your everyday production. The safety, risk, danger, pictograms libraries have been greatly enhanced in this version as well. Okay, over to the right, we see the laser properties toolbar or laser parameters toolbar. This allows us to assign a contour that may be on the screen by color. So with a contour selected, I can come over and reassign that to be a different color now. And if I don't want that to be filled text or filled shapes, then I can take the checkbox away and tell it to just do that as a raster line instead of raster fill. And here I can define how wide that line should be. So I can make the lines heavier so that they raster engrave. A line that is less than 7 thousandths must be vector engraved. It would be considered to be a hairline. So the laser can't raster engrave on very thin lines. They need to be widened using this tool to add a contour and define the contour width. Okay. So I also have the opportunity to select cutting, vector, and then a dotted line, which would be ideal for doing perforations on things like stationary, prototyping boxes where you want to have fold lines, things of that nature. And you can select multiple properties over here. So if I want to have the laser raster engrave and fill that shape and then come back and cut that shape out, then I can select raster and vector. It will raster the engraving and then it will come back and cut that profile out. Okay. So additional tools along the top user toolbar. So over to the left are your basic Windows functionality. So this is where we would open, save as and rename, save a job as a model or open a model. So a template job basically that we can't overwrite and damage the original. We can import and export graphics or different elements from our engraving job. And then of course, sending out to printers. Our post-it note is available here. So this gives us a sticky note that we can make notations about our job, maybe what we save for the job, what material we use for the job, any helpful tips that you want to put that would allow you to reproduce the job at a later date and get the same results or use the same supplies. And once you create this in the sticky note, it is saved with this job permanently. I can hide the sticky note to make it go away and then come back up here and select the post-it note again and it will come back. Okay. So this also allows you to go in and do some things like change the options in the software. It will show you the last jobs that were open so that you can quickly go back to a job that you'd used previously, select it, and open it right up. So also along this same top title bar, we can select edit, which would take us to things like group and ungroup. Objects is going to take us into our tools and allow us to work with multi-copy, variable text, nesting. This also is where we would find a bitmap editor. So if we had a bitmap that we wanted to change the contrast in or crop it, something like that, we could select that bitmap, come into Bitmap Editor and work with it as well. Photostyle or photo lays is available here to process your raster images to apply them to different materials so that it can process with good effects in wood or granite, or for instance, if you're engraving glass or acrylic, you want the image processed very differently. So this is where you could manipulate the image to configure it for different materials. Lasering is going to give us access to our color toolbar that's over on the right side. So that would turn this on and off or toggle it. Here is calibration. So if we wanted to try a different material that we weren't familiar with, we didn't know the settings, this would burn a range of raster and vector settings onto a scrap piece of material to help you define what the best settings are for that material. And then of course, WYSIWYRE, or what you see is what you really engrave, as a preview tool. And then over here, our laser marking, output to printer. If we go to favorites, this allows us to set up our machine. If we're adding a machine into the software or configuring our laser for the first time, under favorites, and then configure a machine or modify a laser machine, this is where we can set that up. As well, we can modify things like our mouse functionality, our vectorization tools, etc. Now, at the point that we are ready to output our engraving job to the laser, then we would simply come and select marking, and it will open our interface for the laser system. So here I have two different laser systems installed. I could select one or the other of those, whichever one I wanted to send the job to. and it would process the job for that machine. It is giving me errors because I do not have a machine connected right now. Even though I have two set up, I don't have one physically connected and turned on. So this is our L solution driver. Some things are new within this driver. It is rearranged, but many of the icons are still here and function the same as they did before. So our wood smoothing is over here, rubber stamps, autofocus. So we have the option of a standard autofocus at the beginning of the job, multiple autofocus. So if we have put 2 picture frames in, then it will go and touch off on each of the frames individually when it's going to do the engraving in that spot, so that even if the frames are a different height, it is perfectly in focus for both of the frames. Okay. Another new function is in our processing. So here we can select to engrave from the top to the bottom of the material, or from the bottom of the material to the top. So if I'm engraving a material, let's say that is a black surface with a white core, if I engrave from the top to the bottom, then as I'm working my way down the material, I've revealed white crisp lettering that was under the cap, but the debris, the soot, the smoke, as I'm working down the material, gets pulled by the exhaust system back across my nice white letters and potentially could stain those or leave a residue that would be hard to clean off. So in that case, I would want to process from the bottom of the material and work back to the top. And then as it's revealing the white core of the material for my text, all the debris is being pulled back over the black portion of the material. Therefore, it doesn't have an opportunity to stain the areas that have already been engraved. So that's a nice tool, nice addition to the software. Power corrections allow you to compensate if you're doing very detailed work. For instance, if you're raster engraving and you're doing wood and the outer edges of the wood tend to burn a little deeper than the center, then you can back away the power from those outer edges so that you have an even burn. So this is just a nice tool to be able to adjust your vector and raster patterns and how the power is applied. Okay. Of course, here we have our exhaust for our chip collection system. This is the Z up position, or how far the table would drop before it starts to touch off on the material and perform the engraving. Our DPI is in this area. We now have DPI X, DPI Y, and we have DPI vector. That is a new tool. So for instance, if in our previous discussion where we were going to raster engrave the red shape and then vector cut it, if we wanted the raster engraving to happen at a low resolution so that it engraved really quickly, we can set that at 300 DPI. But when we're cutting that shape out, we need a much higher DPI to put more heat into the material and better be able to cut through, as well as give us a smooth edge on materials like acrylic. So here I can have the raster engraving occur at 300 DPI, but then I can have the vector cut occur at 10,000 DPI so that I get a much hotter burn, a more efficient cut, and in many cases, a cleaner edge. If I'm cutting acrylic, for instance, I may want to take that up to 20 or 30,000 DPI to flame polish the edge of the acrylic as it's cutting it. Okay. Of course, down below, we still have our settings for our power, speed, number of passes, our offset for focus. If we want to defocus, if we're making multiple passes, then we can set to defocus before or after, and by what value we want the defocus to occur. We also can turn air assist on and off, and then we can select how this path gets processed or if this path is skipped. So the selections that you have in these menus will be based on the selections that you have assigned using the laser color toolbar over on the right. Okay, so if you've selected, in this case for the red object, we selected it was just going to be raster engraved. So the only choice we have over here is raster or none, which would skip processing that object. Whereas our blue color over here has been assigned to do vector cutting. So if we go to our blue line here, then we have the option of vector or skip or none for that contour. Okay, so the options that appear in these windows directly correlate to the assignments that you gave for that contour or that shape over in your laser toolbar. A very beneficial addition into the L Solution driver is that now we have parameters set up for different materials based on your laser model and your laser power when you set your laser up, set your driver output up. So if you're processing acrylic that is 5 millimeters, 3 millimeters, or 10 millimeters, then you can select here and it's going to load in the parameters that are best for that 10 millimeter acrylic. So it's automatically set our DPI at 500 and 30,000 for cutting. It's also applied 100% power and 0.8% speed to the vector cut, whereas the raster engraving is going to be at 30% power and 100% speed. So this is a nice addition. Woods are also included, as well as the laserable materials like Gravostyle Laser, Gravostyle Ultra, Metal X, etc. There is also the opportunity in this section to create user profiles. So these would be engraving settings for materials that that aren't in the factory library. Maybe these are things that you use just in your shop. And once you arrive at the right settings, then you can come up and click the save icon and it will ask you to name that, and then it will save your parameters. So here we can see that I've saved parameters for doing print and cut jobs on printed paper or for cardstock. So this just gives me settings that are predefined that I know work really well with these materials that are unique to some of my applications. Okay, so that is a nice, powerful tool that's been added. Of course, the ability to select cylindrical engraving is within this driver. Also, your orientation. So if you're putting an object in rotated 90 degrees, this will allow you to rotate or reverse it if you're doing it on the back side of acrylic, for instance, as well as changing your origins for your piece. So whether you're going to process in the upper left corner, you're going to use the center of the table or center of the vise, or if you're going to do a floating top left corner, so you put the object on your table, you point to where the top left corner of that object is, and it orientates the engraving based on that position, or the floating center, so that you point on your object to where you want the engraving to occur, and then it will engrave the in that position, centering your text or your graphic. So, so that is a quick look at this interface. We also have the ability to do test inscriptions. So down in the lower left corner, if we want to do test inscription, this is actually going to use the red spotting beam to outline where our text would go. The one below would just put a box around where the text would go, and test plate would just draw a line around where the edge of the material definition is. And then you would simply click on the play button here that has the little eye on it to see or activate these different test functions for validation. Over on the right side, any settings that you, or any changes you make on this page, as you're making them, you want to hit the save button, which just locks those in so that if you close this window out and come back, it will have saved those settings that you gave it. And then, of course, here is the play button or send. This sends the job over to your engraving machine. So pretty quick run through of the software. Hopefully you'll find this beneficial. If you have questions, you can contact our technical support department